Operation Northwoods, a thing that flew under the radar for decades, but proves exactly what Viva just said, which is that the governments will do things to their own people for the sake of regime change on the altar of their global agenda. Operation Northwoods, 1 year after Dwight Eisenhower warned against the rise of the military-industrial complex. So in 1962, at the height of the Cold War, and amid tensions after the Cuban Revolution, the U.S. Joint Chiefs of Staff drafted a top-secret plan called Operation Northwoods. The objective was to create a pretext for a U.S. military invasion of Cuba, and their proposed tactic was to stage or simulate terror attacks on U.S. soil and then blame them on Cuba. The ideas included faking or staging hijackings of passenger planes, sinking boats of Cuban refugees, and carrying out bombings in U.S. cities, including Miami.
And just so that people don't say, oh, this was just the Joint Chiefs of Staff approved it. I might be getting ahead of it. The only person who didn't approve it or refused it was JFK, who ended up dead.
Here's pictures of not only the document, which I believe was declassified in the 90s, but also the people responsible for pitching it. The plan was presented to Defense Secretary Robert McNamara and President Kennedy, but was rejected. Kennedy later forced the resignation of Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Lyman Lemonster, who had signed off on the proposal. So Kennedy was infuriated, allegedly, by this and forced the people responsible to resign. But what it shows is that there was documented planning by the military officials of the United States to blow up, harm, kill,
or
hijack,
fly
kidnap
planes into buildings. Just to understand that, people like
I want
verbatim.
I want everybody at home. Please, whatever you're doing, wherever if you're driving or whatever the hell you're doing, and you're kind of on the fence about this type of demonic shit that these people do, these are human beings in our government, the people that are supposed to take care of you, that are planning terrorist attacks that are going to kill Americans here to push us into a war in another country. This is a fact. We're not making this shit up, okay? So if they're planning and doing this shit back then, what's to say that they wouldn't do it now?
Another plan that was allegedly a part of this was to dress up military aircraft as civilian aircraft, complete with fake passenger manifests, and then fly them into Cuban airspace and wait for the Cubans to shoot them down so they could say, oh, they went after civilians. And just to give you another overview of history, look at the two conflicts before this time, World War I and World War II. Do you guys know the two things that got us into World War I?
The assassination of Franz Ferdinand.
That's what started the war. What got the United States in specifically? I'll tell you.
Wait, one or two? Because I know what number two was.
There's two things.
Okay.
There was the sinking of the Lusitania, which was a civilian transport ship that was blown up by a German U-boat.
Was it?
The United States was conclusively using civilian transport vessels to smuggle munitions to the Allies for the entire duration of the war. And they were basically just loading them up and waiting for a German U-boat to sink one of them so they could say, American citizens were killed on a boat, we have to go to war. The other thing that flies under the radar is something called the Zimmerman telegram, which was allegedly intercepted by American intelligence that was a communication from the ambassador from Germany to Mexico, where he was telling the Mexican government, if you guys invade the United States and occupy them in that hemisphere and stop them from joining the war, when Germany wins and we establish our empire, you get back all the territory you lost in the Mexican-American War. So this alleged communication that has never really been verified stoked fear and outrage in the American public to justify going into the First World War. And then obviously, guys know about World War II. What got us in there? Pearl Harbor.
Yeah.
We have conclusive evidence that FDR's administration knew the attack was coming and let it happen anyway.
What do you mean conclusive evidence?
There has been files disclosed of communications within the administration that basically they knew an attack was coming. There's some question of whether they knew the specifics, but they knew Pearl Harbor was at risk. They knew the Japanese were planning something. They knew they were making preparations, and they chose not to act.
They tried to say that they flew under the radar, Umberto. That's all bullshit.
It's not up for debate. There's conclusive evidence that they knew about this.
And this is and you know what the beauty part is? Well, they're doing the work for you. If you find out somebody's going to do something that I was going to spend money and resources for, why not? Listen, they're going to do it? Everybody here, shh. Shut up. Let them go. And then guess what? We're ready to attack after.
What I love, once you understand that AI is also just the automated tool of the propagandists, they say, no, there's no theory to support the conspiracy. Some theories suggest FDR intentionally allowed the attack to occur to draw the U.S. into war, but most scholars reject these claims.
Yeah, most.
And that brings me to 2000, when we got this from the Project for the New American Century. This was a proposal.
You have a clip for this?
I don't have a clip for this. I can look it up while you talk about it in a second.
What is this one?
This was a DC think tank that put this out in 2000. 10 of the 25 members of this think tank went on to hold positions in the Bush administration.
Oh, weird.
Where, reading from this, further, the process of transformation, even if it brings revolutionary change, is likely to be a long one, absent some catastrophic and catalyzing event like a new Pearl Harbor. So the year before 9/11, they were basically describing how, in order to make the kind of progress they were looking for, the kind of military updates, the kind of social change, something like Pearl Harbor was required.
I also want everyone to appreciate that Operation Northwoods. When I remember the first time I heard of it, it was only within the last 10 years. And I'm like, it's unbelievable, and it's black on white. And it made its way up there, but for the refusal of JFK. You get another president in there, and they sign off on it, or it's like the German guy from The Simpsons, where he's like, they're asking him to pick the option. No, the episode when they were going to nuke the city, I forget what it was. He's like, pick one of the hats. He's like, 1, no, not 1, 3, no, higher than 3, 5, no, lower than 5, 3. You picked 3 already. Like, when you're dealing with a president who is going to either close his eyes or approve of it, they were one signature away from approval on Operation Northwoods, and 25 years later, 9/11 happens, and you can only ask the same question.
So what next, Connor?
So up next, we're still setting the stage for 9/11. Let's talk about the suspicious stock shorts that happened in the days and months prior to the attack. So, according to the claims, soon after 9/11, reports surfaced that there had been unusual stock market activity in the days just before the attacks. Put options, which are bets that stock prices will fall, were bought in unusually large quantities on United Airlines and American Airlines, the two airlines whose planes were hijacked. Similar unusual trades were noted on companies with exposure to the World Trade Center, like Morgan Stanley and Merrill Lynch, and on certain insurance companies expected to pay out heavily after the attack. So, what this seems to indicate is that people might have known some kind of major event was going to take place that would disrupt airlines, insurance companies, and the World Trade Center. So people bought options. They essentially shorted the stock so that they would make money when the stock value declined. We have some of the charts here of what that looked like, where I believe that's United Airlines right there at the middle at that very high peak.
Oh, weird.
Like the days before 9/11, put option purchases jumped manyfold. Like that's not a normal number. And then if you look at the stock value declining right after, United Airlines and American Airlines both tanked because the airline industry was so heavily disrupted. But according to official inquiries, no one who made these purchases had anything to do with Al-Qaeda. And this is the Snopes fact check here that we can read. They said, claims that they were shorted suspiciously were false. Some unusual trading did in fact occur, Snopes must admit. Highly suspicious on its face, they must acknowledge.
But how do they get to that headline conclusion or their top line conclusion while admitting? So there was no shorting of the stocks, but there was highly suspicious trading. That is mutually incompatible conclusions that they've drawn.
For you.
Yeah, well if you look at what Snopes goes on to say, a single U.S.-based institutional investor with no conceivable ties to Al-Qaeda purchased 95% of the UAL puts on September 6th as part of a
suspicion.
That's why it's suspicious. So no, he's not tied to Al-Qaeda. But the question is, why is someone with no ties to Al-Qaeda seemingly prepared for 9/11?
Did they name the guy?
They did not. They never disclosed the identities.
I want to know where that guy's from.
The FBI just said, trust us. They had nothing to do
bullshit.
with it.
If I could take a guess, I probably know
by the way,
where that guy's from.
not for nothing. Do you remember the stories of there was a rather strange short option put out on Truth Social prior to Trump's assassination?
Weird? Isn't that weird?
They said, I'm trying to figure out how it ended up. They said it was an administrative error or something, and then wiped the. I don't even know if they wiped the books of it because the stock surged afterwards. So whoever took that short was going to eat their shorts.
Vinny, I think you did a video on this almost 2 years ago. Wasn't there some very weird movement with the Israeli stock market just days before?
The Israeli stock market was tripping out as well, and I know we're going to get into the dancing Israelis, where a lot of people were like, "Oh, who cares?" People like to dance in the street in Jersey, looking over the water, watching the buildings collapse, dancing and celebrating. Like, yeah. That happens to me, especially if the country's, I'm an ally to the country. That's what I do. If I was in another country that I was friends with, and I saw a disaster, a catastrophic terrorist attack, I dance. I don't know about the rest of you guys. I celebrate with the rest of my people from a foreign country.
Especially if you're on a visa that is then subsequently revoked and you're deported back to Israel, which they were.
Now, also, not for nothing, Vinny. I appreciate how every time you dance now, it's turned into the.
I love that. Well, I can't really get into it because my back, but I just
the YMCA isn't playing. Yeah. But this is a headline from CBS News in September 2001, where they were clearly reporting on how these unusual trades set off alarm bells. The trades were called puts, and they involved at least 450,000 shares of American. What raised the red flag is that 80% were puts, which were far outnumbering call options. So this is not something that was invented well after the fact. This is days later, September 19th.
And it's September 19th because I don't know what the time frame is for the puts to become publicly known. Like, you don't get them within 24 hours. And so it took like 2 weeks, presumably anyhow, to get them. And they were bizarre from, the time frame beforehand. People have to appreciate you're being lied to there. It's black and white, and it's easy for people with half a brain to understand. Where they tell you a conclusion that is not supported by the substance of their fact check, that is the conspiracy right there.
And
they
then
confirm.
Snopes rates it as false to say that anyone tried to do this. And then in their own fact check are forced to admit that, yeah, it's unusual. Yeah, it's highly suspicious.
And he had no ties. So how would he have known? Well, he couldn't have known. That's our conclusion. Therefore, it is not related.
This is very nutty. Like, this is common. I'm just reading here. It's not the only disaster with people short stocks. They did it with COVID. They did it with the
COVID makes sense because they knew they were going to shut down the market, and there was a bunch of congressmen doing it beforehand.
Well, I mean, how long? Wasn't Bill Gates doing some exercise a couple weeks before?
What was it called?
Oh my God!
Not Plan B.
Agenda 2030.
Agenda 21.
He basically was doing exactly what COVID is, the entire process, and then COVID hits.
Now, in fairness to that conspiracy theory, they do that every year or every other year.
But
So,
the odds.
but why do they do it every year and plan for a pandemic?
Come on.
A pandemic.
Come on.
Yeah, it very unusual. And again, we have these people who will look you dead in the face and say, that didn't happen.
Yeah.
That's not real. It's like, we have the headlines, we have the facts, we have the charts, and yet for 24 years, they have been looking us dead in the face and saying, you're nuts, you're making this up, you're lunatics.
I know human would do
I'm
that.
setting up my Google trade alerts, so if any airline dips a little bit,
but
I'm not getting a flight.
By the time you get that alert, the money's already been made and the people have already been killed.
So if you like this clip, click right here. And if you want to see more like it, click right here. Stay angry, Patriots.